Ooh, yes, can we charge me along? All right, so this is a video, science of tradition video. This is, a supporting evidence in the line of, as far as some of the translations that help me with my understanding of the nature of reality, and as far as what is provable in science. And so we look at some of these words that have been disproven, and they're what I feel like are their counterparts in Lakota, right? Lakota tradition and 16 mysteries, but just in the language. And so in the language of Lakota language, what you have is a dynamic language, a language of verbs. So it's intuitive. And so we have this video that from Tiokushin Ghost Horse. Says Lakota Native American on intuitive intelligence. And so in this video, it's a great video on the language and how the language is intuitive, but it's also ecological. It's nature, so it's describing nature. And so he explains in this video how Mitakuye Oyasin, we're all related, can also translate into E equals MC squared, the nature of reality, and so, and I said that, so there's some translations on some these words. And so when we looked at we look at translations from English, from Lakota to English, there's quite a bit that's left out, right? And so, the base when they do the translation, they just do the very basic, simplest explanation for things, and don't really take into account for it's like an iceberg that grows into all these other meanings, whether you're praying, whether you're talking to an adult, a child. There's all different ways that the language can move for a single word, right? It's like when you're in prayer and somebody says Hatchatu, Hatchatu, that's, it is what it is. But then if you have an adult on the res and they say that Hatchatu, it means you better be quiet, right? And so there's different meanings depending on setting, gender, all that kind of stuff, And so when we talk about the word word takushkanshkan, literal translation is just changes things, or things change, And so my teaching that I was taught on that was for ceremony was that Tashkushkashkan also means in that situation the ever-flowing energy that is through, around, and pervades everything, right? And so for me, that describes aether, right? Or quintessence, right? And so we look at the etymology of quintessence. It's an ancient philosophy, medieval alchemy, the pure essence latent in all things, the substance of which the heavenly bodies are composed. Literally the fifth essence. Right? The Latin term is a loan translation of Greek pempte ousia, the aether, that was added by Aristotle to the four known elements: water, earth, fire, air, and aether. And it's said to permeate all things, right? Just like they said on Takushkanshka, right? And so that when we go over to ether, then the etymology of ether, it says the upper regions of space, and directly from Latin, aether, upper pure bright air, sky firmament. In ancient cosmology, the element that filled all space beyond the sphere of the moon, constituting the substance of the stars and planets, conceived as a pure form of fire or air, or as the fifth element. Right, so the fifth element is ether, and so when they're talking about that, it's just the concept was shaken by the Michelson and Morley concept in 1887, and then was discarded in the early 20th century after the acceptance of the relativity, right? And so the first thing they do is they point out Michelson and Morley again. I did the other video on that, and the Michelson and Morley experiment was to attempt to measure the motion of the Earth relative to luminiferous ether, a supposed medium permeating space. So Long story short, the Michelson and Morley experiment was to prove whether or not there was in fact ether, the intelligent living aspect of the universe, right? And so when you search it, the only thing you find right on the first search page is Michelson and Morley observed no substantial difference between the speed of light and the direction of flow through supposed ether and the speed at right angles, which suggested that there was no such thing as ether, right? And so again, what they don't tell you is that in 1965, Richard Feynman from the Weizmann Institute of Science replicated it. And then also 20 years later, with Professor Jian Wu's group in East China's Normal University in Shanghai. And they proved without the shadow of a doubt that it was in fact real and it was intelligent and it was responding to them. But like I said, they buried that in the 1991 Nature magazine peer review, and just it was just like a little paragraph in the very back of it. You know, I mean, they didn't give any of its due that it should have. You know, I mean, essentially, what is that proving? It's proving that there is a creator, an intelligence that supports the whole universe, right? And so, I mean, for me, as a young person coming through school, coming through college, everything I heard in school around all of this was that it was nonsense, that it was not provable, you know, that science disproved it or whatever. And in reality, just materialism denied it, not disproved it. Science doesn't care. Science is a tool, right? And so, that's ether, Takushkanskan. And so then we go to the story of Mini Wakan, superfluid, sacred water, right? And it says, before there was anything or any time, Eon was, and his spirit was Wakantanka. Eon was soft and shapeless, but he had all of his powers. He gave himself to make Maka and become hard and powerless. His blood was blue and became the waters of the earth, right? And so when we look at superfluid, so I picked this study right here in particular because it came from NASA and NASA scientists. But what they're describing here is in the atmosphere, we know that as you go up, it gets really, really cold, right? But what isn't is known is that as you go further up into the stratosphere, it gets warm to right before the mesosphere. There's a window there where they say it's about like 40 degrees below zero to 40 above, a lot similar to what we deal with on the ground, right? And when they describe what's up there, they thought there was going to just be empty and cold and no life, maybe some different energy patterns, but they found that there is life, right? And it says generally the diversity of microbial taxa measured in the lower stratosphere matches proportional abundance found in surface and marine freshwater environments. However, the concentration of biomass in the upper atmosphere is order of magnitudes lower, right? And so what that is saying is that as they go through, they describe that this space that they're talking about is 40 kilometers to 70 kilometers about in the air, and it's something that they describe as water, right? Or acting like water. And so I bring up the ether is superfluid, you know, or aether, you know, because what they're describing is aether as a superfluid in a particle. And it says all right, so it says aether is a superfluid. A new model for aether is suggested according to which it is a superfluid state of fermion and antifermion pairs, describable as macroscopic wave function. The vacuum state of this superfluid pervades the entire universe and may account for the missing matter. The visible matter in the universe appears as excitations in the underlying superfluid vacuum, right? So a superfluid, what is superfluid? Superfluid, by definition, a superfluid medium would imply the existence of ether, and this concept is associated with pre-Epsteinian physics. Superfluidity is the characteristic property of fluid with zero viscosity, which therefore flows without any loss of kinetic energy when stirred. a superfluid forms vortices that continue to rotate indefinitely, right? And so that's in the sky, right? That's that superfluid, that ether, that mini wakan, that sacred water, right? And that sacred water, that gave birth, sky on the sky gave birth to that motion, right? And it's motion that never stops. So that's where that tate would come from, and so, and then all of these things, like I said, they're all interrelated because they all one became one, and so when we look at on the ground, when we talk about, so that's up there, the superfluid mini wakan, and then mini wachoni, what's on the ground, the sacred water that we work with, our primary water, is represented. So in school, we're taught about this water cycle here, right? From ground, rivers, lakes, evaporation, condensation, perspiration, transpiration, right? But what they don't tell you about is primary water. And if you look up and if you do a search on it, they call it the primary water theory. Like there's not people doing this stuff, right? So it says primary water, the water cycle describes the existence and movement of water on, in, and above Earth. Where does all the Earth's water come from? Primordial Earth was an incandescent globe made from magma, and all the magmas contain water. Water set free by magma. So they're saying that there's a cycle above the ground, and then there's a cycle below the ground that takes hydrogen and oxygen and mixes them together under pressure, under great forces, and creates primary water, new water, fresh water, that there's no such thing as shortages, and that there's, so this is the primary water technologies. These are the guys that are actually drilling for it and getting it and accessing it and proving that there's no shortage, right? So it says primary water technologies is the first water exploration and production venture established to locate, drill into and produce high quality earth generated primary water worldwide. Primary water refers to renewable, unconventional groundwater resources available globally, regardless of geology or climate. Primary water E&P follows the proven methodology of other extractive industries of the oil, gas, and mining sectors. Advanced remote sensing and geophysical technologies assist in pinpoint locating these resources. Precision drilling using standard DTH, dual rotary air hammer drilling rigs into typically consolidated and hard rock formations ensures minimal contamination and maximum production. We drill where the water is. So you think about like, what you call it, in Michigan or whatever, or anywhere that they're sure, the deserts, they're right now they're saying that in the deserts overseas that there's a river exploding out of the desert. Well, that would be this water, this primary water that has cycles that are created underground. All nature is moving under the influence of the sun, moon, and internal factors. Fractures and fissures form in Earth's mantle all the way up through Earth's crust. These are the canals through which primary water finds its way to the surface. So imagery and data analysis, precision drilling, and so like I said, there's multiple understandings for just mini wachoni, and so we know about what we've seen, but there's always that underlying, that internal, the underground represents the subconscious, right? In our mirror philosophy understanding that everything has a mirror description within us. Inside of us, there's all the things that we see outside, rivers, mountains, all of those things are present inside. And so you would that would be that underlying process. So there's the outer that's known, and then there's the inner that's not as known, that needs to be included in how we teach water. And so these guys right here at Primary Water Technologies, again, I have no relation to them. They don't even know who I am or nothing like that. But these guys are needing people to do this job, and so that's to have access to the cleanest, the best living water there is, and the only reason I've ever hesitated to talk about it, in the past, is that it's not it can't be looked at as a get out of jail free card for what we've done to the water on the surface. We have to fix that somehow, but at the same time, we need to teach each other on the ground level that there's water accessible to everybody. Flint, that's what Flint, places like this should not be without water. There is no reason for it other than the control of people's stress and anxiety to act, with impunity. So again, like I said, Takushkanskan, ether, Miniwakan is that super fluid, and that comes down to Miniwachoni, sacred water, primary water. And all of these things are an aspect of the water that comes out of your sink, right? Just because it's been abused and a lot of that energy has been taken out. If anything that we can prove, with like the Masori Moto, is that our intentions, our love, can bring that water back to life. And like I said, you can make poison into nectar and nectar into poison with the power of your heart, right? And like I said, that's provable now in a lab. You go to the Heart Math Institute Global Coherence Initiative and look at all their lab studies. These are all peer-reviewed lab studies that show the power of our intentions, right? And so, again, the reason for the whole thing is that we can then apply that understanding to agronomy, to how we access water, so that our footprint for how we farm, produce energy, water, can be dialed down and be created and become far more efficient, so we don't take this big space and it's not this big machine that can break down, right? So that having all of our food and energy all be accessed from a big giant singular collective thing is just asking for trouble. Don't put your eggs all in one basket. That's where we're at with a lot of these things. What happens if this big box stores go down? Shipping. How many people have access to water, food, supplemental medicine? And like I said, with insurance going down as a prime it's tragic. And as much as I would not want to go through that, if I would have to start looking to other alternatives. And in our culture, and traditions, whether it's from the Irish or Native side, they say that whatever environment you live in will provide you the medicine that you need. Just like in nature, when you see poison, you see the antidote next to it, right? So if you see poison ivy, you see goldenrod near it. We just need to learn how to understand these things again. So again, I appreciate your time, Wopla, and I will be back. Oh.